Alright, so now we're going to talk into actually how to program songs and everything. So the first thing to do is get to the right page. So there are different pages. So you see down here, these are the faders that you'll actually be running through. And currently this is on our weekend page, which is house lights, stage wash, our open doors and welcome look. We need to get to the worship page, which is where we store the lights, store the songs for everything. So for the worship page, you go up a page, and now this is all blank here because we had it cleared out. So to create a new song, we could store something into the executor here. So if we just press store, this button down here, and then tap into that executor, now it creates this blank sequence. So sequences are what lights are stored in, because the lights, all the songs and everything, they're not actually stored down here. They're stored into a separate, what's called a sequence. So we have a page over here called sequence that we organize alphabetically. So you see over here, there's an existing song, you can go to what letter it starts with to see if we have it. Green, and we also color code the songs. So green means that the song should be up to date and good to run. Whereas red means the song needs to be updated or it's pretty old. So we just created this blank song in here. Let me go back to the sequences. So once we store it in this executor, it automatically creates this blank one in here. We see that this is actually sequence 10, that we have quite a few things up here that we got to clean up from Christmas. Let me just remove these here. Drums, cyan, static. Okay. So this is the new one that we created. It puts it right at the top of all the sequences here. And so that's where that's stored, and then it goes down. It assigns itself to the executor, because and I'm going to remove it from this executor. Say you have an existing song and you're trying to use it, it's not going to be assigned here automatically. So we have to assign these sequences down there. So to do that, you just press the assign button. Then you can select your song, and then either press the buttons for the fader or just touch down into there. And so now this song is referenced in here. So when we go through it, it'll be that song. But we're going to go into the blank one we just created. So we'll assign this back down. And now we'll go back into programming. So a sequence is composed of multiple, what they call cues. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually go into the first cue. So I'm just going to press the fader go button here, which is number 1. Now we're in the first cue. You see that it fires it. That blue bar goes, means that we're inside of the queue and it's active. So in the queue, we see there's just one here, and we'll create a second one just to show how that goes. Now the important thing, probably the most important thing when programming songs, is to make sure you actually have the right song selected. Because right now, you see that it's black up top, which means that if we were to try to program something, it's going to store it into something else because that isn't selected. Like for instance, the house lights. So next time we bring the house lights up, it's going to have some random song stuff in it, and it'll mess everything up. So to select the lights, or the right sequence, you'll press select and then touch that sequence. And now it's green and we know it's selected. So anything we program is going to go into that sequence. So to store things into a queue, after you make adjustments, and we'll show how to make adjustments. We went over the presets and everything. But you'll press store, so the store button down here, and then you can press Q. So store Q1. So since Q1 already exists, once we hit please, or the enter button, it's going to bring up this window. And really there's only two main things you have to worry about: overwrite and merge. Merge means that it's going to take whatever you had programmed and merge it into that existing queue. So say the lights were already red, and they were on and red, but you want to change the position. So you set the position in here and then merge it in, and it keeps the lights red. Whereas if you do overwrite, it's going to program only what is stored that you have edited into there, and everything else is overridden. So we'll show exactly what that looks like here. So for instance, if I have the lights on and say we'll make them red, and we'll store that in Q1. So I'll hit please, and then if you hit please again, it'll default to merge. So that's kind of just a quick way to do it. You hit please twice. So now that we're in the song, the lights are red. So, and for instance, I'm just going to turn that song off, and the lights turn off, and now when we go into the song, the lights automatically come up red. So say now we want to change the position. So if we go to, let's just do the floor, since that's easy to see. Now the lights are on the floor. If we store that into Q1, now if we press overwrite, what's going to happen is it overwrote. Since we didn't, in the programmer, we didn't have the color or an intensity programmed, it only stored the position. So now the position is stored in there, because if we bring the lights up, they're on, but they don't have the intensity we had in the dimmer. So what we want to do is merge it into there. So we'll bring the lights to the intensity we want, set their color, and then store that back in Q1 and merge it into there. So now we see that it's in the correct position and has our intensity and color. So that's how to store it into one queue. Now when we get into multiple queues for when we want to change lights, for instance, we want to bring the lights up, like their position, let's move them up. So we'll go to straight position. Let's say we want that for Q2. So we can store that in Q2. And since it's a brand new queue, it's not going to prompt us to merge it or overwrite or anything. So now you see that I'm actually going to go back. So after storing it, what I did is there's this clear button. And this clear button, when it's illuminated, that means you either have a fixture selected or there's something stored in the programmer. Now, what they call the programmer is when you select the light and edit its values, that means that this is stored in the programmer. Like if you see on the actual fixture in this layout view, it has that red tab on it. That red tab means that something is stored in the programmer for it. So if I deselect it once, it'll de-highlight, it'll remove the highlight of selecting them, but it's still gonna be red. So since something's still stored in the programmer, if you were to store that, store something in the queue, it's just going to update it with that. Now, one thing to make sure after you're done storing it, so say for Q2, we want these lights to be blue. So we'll store this in Q2, and we'll just merge it so that we also have the position of moving up. We see that the clear button is still highlighted, and the lights are still blue, yet we're in Q1. Because if you see here, and I'll go into it as well. Also, yeah, so if you touch the center of the queues in here, you'll view the queue list. So you see Q1 right now is blue and is highlighted blue and we're into it. But the actual lights are still blue. But in Q1, we programmed the lights to be just red. That's because in the programmer, even though we stored it in a separate queue, it's still active in the programmer. So we have to clear everything we have. So if you press clear 3 times, that will remove it, turn it back to what it originally is at in the queue, and reset that back to default. So now we have that Q1, and then in Q2 we have them turn blue and then up. So we'll see what that looks like. So now if we go into that next queue, they change colors into blue, and then they also move up. And then we can do another thing for, say, Q3. We want these to get really bright and turn green. Then we can store that in Q3. And then clear everything, and now it turns back to blue. That's because we're still in Q2 where we had the lights blue. So we'll go into Q3, and now they get really bright and turn green. So that's how you can store and program into the queues. Now it's important to understand how the queue works, because when just pressing this button and it goes through the queues, if we go inside of the queue here, we see there's a few different columns that have different values. So one, there's the name of the cue, and we do kind of have a naming convention. So essentially, the first cue name we always do mark, which that first mark cue is going to be what stores the initial colors and everything in for your song. And same with intensity. We don't typically have any effects in that mark cue. It's just storing initial colors and position and intensity. And then after that, we could go into, so you have that mark cue, and then say you might have an intro to a song. It also depends on the song. And then after that intro, you may go into the verse. So this is kind of how cues are laid out. I kind of follow, so if you look in Planning Center, when you look at a song, it'll have, you can view the lyrics and shows you when you're in the verse, the chorus, the bridge. So you can follow, somewhat follow the Planning Center lyric order. It depends. Sometimes they differentiate from that, so you may not be able to do that completely. But for instance, if I add another cue here, so I just did store Q4 to create a blank cue. And since I didn't have anything in the programmer, and I pressed stored Q4, so it essentially just created a blank cue with nothing in it. So now if I go into Q3, let me go back into Q3. If I go into Q4, nothing changes because I didn't have anything programmed. And this, for instance, would be the chorus. So that's naming the cue. Now, in programming, you may need to go. So, for instance, if a song goes into a verse and and they have a pre-chorus, and you don't always have to create a separate cue for the pre-chorus. But if it feels like there should be something, and you want to kind of insert a cue in between those two, what you can do is program what you want, and then you press store cue. And to go in between, what you'll have to do is store Q3, and then you can do 0.1, or basically point anything between 3 and 4. So for instance, I'll just do 3.1. So now when I merge that, we have this 3.1, and this could be the pre-chorus, if I could spell right. The pre-chorus. So now that goes into there. You see now the numbers are kind of jacked up. It's not super important, but in later videos we'll get into some detail about going back into certain cues. So it does help to have them numbered just single integers. So if we select all the numbers in here, you see that there's a blue box around all of them. You can press you can press spacebar, and that edits the cue numbers. So it kind of looks complicated. All you really have to do, if you select all of them, just type in 1 and then press renumber. And so now it renumbered everything starting from 1 all the way down to 5. So that fixed that. Now the next important thing for cues is the fade time. This is how long it takes to go from one cue into another, or sorry, not one cue into another. When you fire into the next cue, it's how long it takes for that cue to fully build. So for instance, if I go to back to the mark, this first cue here, the fade time for the second cue now, if I do that to 0 and I go into that intro, what's going to happen is it's not going to have any time to fade into that, so it's going to snap on. So the color instantly changes and the lights move up as fast as they can. There aren't a whole lot of uses for that. We typically do it at least 2 seconds. Depending on the song and what you're going for, you can change that speed. Hits typically are 0 to less than a quarter of a second. And then you can also do it to a longer time, like 4 seconds. So go back to the beginning and we go into the next cue. Now it's going to take 4 seconds to fade into everything. So that's kind of fading, and there is also a delay, which is not super important in here. So for instance, if we do a delay of 2 seconds, what's going to happen is we'll go back into this first cue. With the second one, a delay of 2 seconds, when we fire it, it's going to wait 2 seconds and then start to fade the song. That one there's a lot of different use cases for what you're trying to do. It's not used a whole lot. So the next thing is going to be that's important is going to be the trigger that's in here. So by default, everything is go, which means that you manually have to fire into that cue. So if you touch and hold into the triggers, it's going to bring up this list of everything. Now we really only use go and follow. There's others that we don't really use. So for instance, let me go into this second cue. This is going to be a follow. So I'm going to change this time back to 2 seconds so we don't have to wait as long. So now we're in this first mark cue. When I go into the intro is going to go for 2 seconds, and then automatically the follow cue for the verse is going to go into it. So if you see, I'll go back into the first cue. Once we fire this, you see that follow, it has its own kind of timer it goes through, and then it goes into the verse. So that's helpful if you need to basically just have anything follow. There's a lot of different use cases for that. So that is primarily everything in the cue. We'll go over commands another time, probably soon, because that's another important column in here. So that's programming a song with different cues, how to store things and arrange them into cues. And let's see, now let's do a second song. So that's one song we created. We'll go take a song that already exists. So